We are live for this Thursday evening, and welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Les. Yeah, all good. How are you?
Not too bad. And the summer's holding out, which is always good, Paul, because obviously we're filming for Wolflands too, and we can get lots more filming in, can't we?
Oh, yeah, the loads to do, still in the loads to do. And yeah, and tonight, just to jump straight in, we're talking to Matt Emch, as everybody knows, because you've seen from Banner. Well, we've just had a phone call from Matt. He's stuck in traffic, so he's going to be 5-10 minutes late. So you're going to have to put up with myself and Les for at least five minutes. So if you've got any questions, like from Sunday, fire them at us.
Actually, Paul, now you mentioned that, I have some questions, but if you want to go through anybody who's coming to the chat room and welcome those on board, that'd be great.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so we've got Awake, Kim King, Stargazer, AMG, Zeno, Simon Riley, Martin Abbas. Alison's moderating for us tonight. Thanks, Alison. I know Linny's in. Mrs. Linny, Pete will be watching. Andrew Sheehan, and apologies, people, because there's Kim King, Lee Elliott, Melinda, but it's limited what I can see here. So, yeah. Annie French Boynton, Jojo, the Stargazer. I've only seen that because Jojo's just replied to her. And Lee, Rivington Pike, Jim Cross, Drew Hollings. Dragonborn, Al Durham. We can go on forever, can't we? There's 83 people. What are you doing? You've got a little meerkat here again. Look, there you go. Sat there like a stuffed dummy.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Brilliant.
Anyway.
He's listening to the show, is he?
Well, I don't know what he's doing. He's sat up like... Anyway, so what were you on about questions?
Well, first of all, I've got to say, we've got to thank everybody.
John Paul Body, DM Moonson. Sorry. Go on, Les.
Got to thank everybody for all their support coming on to the chat tonight. As always, it's welcome, very welcome indeed. I'm glad that you enjoy these type of shows. And as Paul said at the top of the show, we are waiting for Matt Emch to come on. He's had to go and run an errand, as we'd say, here in good old Yorkshire. And so we'll put Matt on as soon as he comes on. First of all, if you've got any questions for when Matt does come on, please put those questions in caps, as Alison has probably already wrote that in the chat box. And thanks for doing the moderating, Alison. Right then, I'll carry on because I noticed these questions that came in from Graham. I ain't got a second name for Graham, Paul, but we did go through some questions on Sunday night, and some of these people will have heard you answer some of these, Paul. But for Graham's benefit, I'll pick up from where I left off.
Okay, and we'll just go into Matt if he comes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. Let's have a look then. Right then, Graham was asking. He said he was fascinated that a priest came round to exercise or bless the property that you was in, but you declined his offer. And this is when you first moved in, Paul.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
I know that you found his manner off-putting, but was it also the fact that you were the new owner, and that you felt like you could cope better alone? Do you know where the exorcist is, the priest? Is he still around and working?
It was Reverend Tom Willis, and a great bloke, absolutely really well thought of in East and certainly in East Yorkshire. And I think he passed away in 2014, and we moved into that property in 1993. The things that were happening to me, the things I've written about in Night People, kind of stopped long before that, and they literally started again when we moved there. There'd been a big gap. So it was last thing on my mind when priests come. It were almost sometimes, when we say, I wonder if things are planned out and mapped out.
Yeah.
Outside of our knowledge, outside of what we know, and maybe our life's all sort of pre-mapped out. Well, maybe it is because there'd been a huge gap in things happening. We moved there in 1993, I think it was 3, and it started right away. But not only that, we'd moved into a property that had also with the previous owners, that also been doing a lot of, if I say spiritualism, I think I'm being really kind. They'd been doing a lot of strange things in that property, kind of dark practice. underneath all wallpaper, there were all sorts of symbolisms and things. I think I said this other day. Beneath floorboards, there were lots of things as though you're trying to ward off bad things, if that makes sense. The St. Christopher's, where your light fittings had been, your electrician had go and work, or a page front Bible. Oh, we're finding all these things. So we moved in it, and within 2 or 3 weeks of moving in it, Reverend Tom Willis, who was the official exorcist, I don't just think I'm sure there'll be quite a lot of people in that job. So I'm not trying to claim all knowledge on this, but if he made the newspapers, the national newspapers, quite a lot, and he used to say he was the official exorcist, for the church.
Yeah.
And he announced himself one night, just knocked on the door and said who he was one evening. We've got 4 little girls, little troop of girls behind me, and he said he'd like to bless the house because new people had moved in. So all the things that had happened to me in the past, they weren't in my mind, even though things had started kicking off again. So I let him in. So, and we went upstairs, and he's walking around, he's blessing the house as he's in whatever manner that he was doing it. And we go back to 1993, and he just got to the top bedroom, and he said, "I wouldn't let your children sleep in this room." Incidentally, that's the room where, when we stripped wallpaper back, we found a lot of occult symbolism and things. But it was Sarah's room, eldest daughter, and she stood behind him, and she sort of, I don't know how old she was. She'd have been about 11, I think. And the man was fine. He'd not said anything wrong. It was just the fact that I know it had sort of alarmed Sarah, and he didn't mean it. And when I saw her face, I said, "I think you better leave." I said, "I think it's probably just frightening children, this, more than what you're saying to me." And so there were no bad feeling with the man. I hope that's answered Graham's question a little bit. So I think he came. Sorry, Les, I've just cut through you just one bit. I think he came because of the house's history, and a new family had moved in.
Now, a little bit about the house here. What was the house that you're in now? One of the first properties to be built on that piece of land?
It was the very first property to be built on that piece of land. It's a terraced house. It can't be anything else.
Yeah.
Victorian terraced house.
I mean, now it's surrounded by how many houses? Hundreds and hundreds.
No, there's a full street either side of it and across the road. But if you look at the house, if you stand back and look, it's not attached to any of them, even though all other houses are tight to it. Yeah. And it were in what's called Blackburn Field, and it were owned by this man. I think it was Samuel Blackburn, and he had the house built. And
So when was your house built? What year?
I think it's about 1885. Just a big Victorian house. It's in its day, I suppose it were a fine house, but there's lots of really sort of lovely grand properties that look more magnificent than that one around East Yorkshire and North Yorkshire. I think they're even better. They're really big, sort of imposing houses. But Les, when you think about it, it doesn't matter about house. The things that happened to me happened in a 3-bedroom semi-detached council house in Old Dennerby, just a little rectangular box, and I don't think they choose an house in particular. It's probably the thought process or what we put into it that makes things happen at times. But have we any questions? And because, as I say, we are waiting for Matt. I'm just going to go into and just check.
For people who've just come onto the stream and you've seen Matt Emch advertised, we're still hoping he will be on.
Well, I've just got an apology from him. He's still stuck in traffic, but there's no bother. It's okay. He can't help that.
I've got something else from Graham actually, and it's kind of relating. And I know lots of people on the stream have heard this one before. It's about I'll read it verbatim. Your strange encounter with the alien-like shirtless being outside the barbers was very odd. I recall he said that he came from Rickhall. Have you ever taken a trip up there to have a look around, or are you happy to leave it well alone? I know you've done
well, Graham, I've never taken a trip up there. It's strange you should say it, though. Somebody contacted me probably only about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
What's the background of the story, Paul, for those who don't know?
Oh, well, we're going to get caned here because people get some people love this story, some people hate it. I think it was 2013. I'm going to do it, people, so you know it's coming. In 2013, I left our property with my wife to get a phone unlocked. at a shop round corner in Bridon. And as I'm leaving the property, there's a man at the other side of the road shouting at me. It's a cold day. I think it was November, but sunny. Unusually, he'd got his shirt off and he's just leant against a wall with a push bike at the side of him, and he's shouting. And we went, I thought he was talking about the weather. I didn't pay much attention to what he was actually saying. He was saying, like, you're bringing down the light. I realise that now. We went and got the phone unlocked. I'm rushing this, people, because I'm mindful of the fact that people say, oh, God, you're still talking about this. When we came back, he's at the other side of the road. He's now got a tight-fitting dark brown jumper on, I think a crew neck. He goes back to me. And as I approached with my wife, he turned round and he went, you know what you're doing. You're bringing down the light. You're causing lots of problems. And I can't work out what he's on about. Nothing made sense. You know, most people can hold their own, should we say, in an argument or sort of a little battle of words, but I couldn't beat this man. No matter what he said to me, my reply was just tied up in knots. He'd lost me. He lost me and found me. And essentially, he's just kept telling me I'm bringing down the light and I was causing big problems. And I went. We'd had enough. We weren't listening to him. And then it turns out the barber over the road had been watching all this and been watching him the day before, because he believes he were watching our property. So, you know, there's a few other things tied up in it as well. And basically, I asked him where he was from, and we couldn't remember. We couldn't remember where he said he was from. And then, I don't know whether it were a week later or 2 weeks later, there's a front page of the Bridlington Free Press. There's a man gone missing at Bempton. And he'd gone missing, but he lived in a place called Rickle. Need to stress, it wasn't him. And it's probably got nothing to do with him, just a coincidence. But as soon as we saw that Rickle, we thought, that's where that guy was from, or said he was from. So have I been back? No. Have I been there, should I say? No, I haven't. But somebody contacted me about 5 weeks ago. I think they said that their partner lived there. They didn't know anybody of that description. You never know, they might show up in chat. But they were going to have a look round and sort of inquire. They were sort of interested as well. But strange place to say you were from. And as we're facing, as I'm talking to this guy, my wife, Mary, looking across at this guy's bike over the other side of the road. When we got home, she said it had no brakes, you know, on handles. She said, it's 45 miles away. It were an old green bike, you know, picture Treacleton green, like something you'd see on advert where they're driving bread up that hill. Just no brakes. So, there you go.
And you've not had any further well, I guess you haven't really.
No, nothing. First and last time I ever saw it. First and last time, Les. Yep.
Yeah. So obviously you've not heeded his warning, or nothing's happened since he gave the warning. That's the main thing. Nothing's happened. No. And I've just looked, and Matt Emch says, I'm just pulling in the driveway. So I've just, that could have been just now or a minute ago. But go on, hit us with another question, Les. Okay, man. Many of the stories you relate in the Truth Proof books are really fascinating. Do you ever have time to follow up with some of the people involved to see whether there have been any further developments? And I think I've said numerous times, I wish there were more time, and not because I don't follow people up, because it just eats into your time, and you want to have time for everybody. I mean, I think other afternoon I've got about 4 missed calls, and I looked at my phone. I said to Mary, I said, well, there's 20 minutes, there's 20 minutes, there's 20 minutes. And before you know it, at least an hour and 10 minutes has gone, and that's all time. And it's all people. Go on, Les. They was all from me, them calls. Oh, they were all from you, yeah. But it's all from people that you're trying to follow up information with, and it's not just East Yorkshire anymore. It's really spreading far and wide. I've got some reports from Canada and cryptid type reports and things, and I'm trying to keep this man interested so that I can share this information with you guys. Because a lot of the time, I don't mean it's showing, it's investing time in people so that they feel comfortable to share their accounts. What's he done now? So that's where we're at. I can see a few questions here, Les. I don't know whether they've come up. Let's have a look then. I ain't Let's have a look then. I have to go all the way back up there. Unless you can see one, I'll you read one out.
Well,
Paul.
I've seen Al. I'm not sure what Al means by that. What comes next? Another film or another? Unless I've missed a bit of your question further up, Al. We are on with documentary.
Does it mean book?
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, I've not thought of that. Well, I've started the book into that sub-universe, but which has finished first? You know, the documentary, which we don't have a name for, people, or the book. I don't know. Probably the documentary. You know, speed that things are going at the moment. Plus, I'm doing that one with Chris Turner, which we haven't got a name for. So yeah, it's all good. We're just chipping away at it. Right, go on then.
Zeno, Paul, when was your last shadow person encounter? Did you notice a shearing on the camera, a frame rate delay? This is going back to the video probably we put out Saturday.
Well, we've been up there. I mean, Lynn is in chat, and I wish Pete had come in. And I know Mick watches it as well, but he don't come in chat. It was good to get Mick on just for his input the other night on that short that we put out, because otherwise, once again, it's just me talking. But I spoke about it afterwards, and Pete said, "Well, I'd have said what I saw," which is too late now. But I suppose that was last time, and that's probably going back at least a week. I can't remember date, and we didn't get it on film, Zeno. Which is unfortunate. We would literally, because there's loads of comments saying, why didn't you put infrared on it? Why didn't you put a thermal on it? There was a group of people, 6 people on this platform looking out to sea and looking around. And literally 20 yards away, 25 yards away, the outline of a person were there on path. It was Mick that saw him and said, who's that? I looked. There's a guy comes up at about 9:30 to see us most nights, Mark. So, and he just looms out at darkness. So he has a torch, but most of the time he don't carry it. So we were thinking it was Mark until we realised it's just stationary. And as we walked towards it, in Mick's words, it just kind of evaporated. It just disappeared. Then the week previous, when we're all walking back as a group, Peter says, "There's a bloke here walking towards us, look," or someone. And there's a bit of a dip. And they're walking, and as we meet, we're going to dip. They're not there. You know, what does it mean? Yeah. It's strange, yeah. It's strange. Yeah. That's about the only word for it.
I've got a question from Dragonborn. This is relating back to the house. Paul, have you ever thought those symbols might have been placed there to protect the occupants from something?
It's possible. You know, some of Dragonborn, because when you think about the things that were placed under the floorboards, such as little crucifix or a Saint Christopher, it's almost something. Well, it's not almost. It is something good, isn't it? You know, with good intent. Yet all around the hallway, and Sarah remembers her eldest daughter, and I think maybe Gemma does. All around the hallway, underneath paper, there were little gargoyles. We don't know whether they were copper or brass, but they were all over. Like it's about 2-foot intervals all the way around, and this staircase just went up and round. Big old mahogany staircase. I don't know. It's difficult to say what had happened in that place. I'll tell you what we did find in that same room. You see, we weren't looking for any of this. As we're in the house, remember, there's Matt here now. So I'll just finish this, Matt. Give us the thumbs up. I know you can hear us. Yep. So remembering this property, I'm just a young fella back then, and we're renovating it. And in that bedroom where the vicar said, "Don't let children sleep in here," it was full of bin liners, and they were full of letters. And all the letters, we now know, they'd all got different style handwriting, and they'd all even different coloured pens, and they were spirit letters, automatic writing. And as fast as I were taking them downstairs, they were going in a 45-gallon drum and getting burnt. And it were all, I don't know, penny dropped probably after Reverend Willis had been, but we'd only got a few left by then. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean, we were burning them every day. There weren't that many, but we bought this property, contents and all, everything, lock, stock and barrel. But we can chase this one up on Sunday. We'll do a bit more, but let's bring Matt in, because he's made a great effort to get to us tonight, and we really appreciate it.
Certainly has. And I'll be in the background, Paul, if any questions come through, and we'll Adam, welcome, Matt, to the stream.
Hi, Matt. Volume, Matt. No volume. Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries.
We'll get there. I'll just throw this quickly on the screen.
Okay.
Then until Matt gets sorted out. And I was hearing question for Paul. When is the next documentary coming out? I know you just talked about this. I watched Wolfhands and it was great. Me and Sally really enjoyed it, and the production quality and the music was spot on.
Well, thank you, Andrew. We'll carry on talking, Matt, just in case. Hope you can sort this.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, you're there. You're there.
I apologize, everybody. I'm so sorry for being late.
Yeah, don't worry.
It was wild. I was at the dentist today, so my face is numb all through here. But I had to get here, and of all things, at the very end before I got home, a school bus was in front of me, and it was stopping. I was going crazy, so I'm so sorry I'm late.
Nah, don't worry.
Don't be sorry.
That's Sod's Law. They call that Sod's Law here, Matt. It's Sod's Law, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
No worries.
You're welcome.
And I'm just at this juncture. I'm just going to disappear into the background, Matt. If any questions come through from people in the stream, I'll probably come on later on and get those on the screen for us to for you to answer. And I'll see you in a little while.
Good seeing you, Les.
Yeah,
Mr. Sinclair, how are you, sir?
I'm good and better for seeing you. It's great to have a catch up, and this will just be like two friends talking. And
absolutely.
I know our people in chat, who follow Truth Proof, loved having you on last time. So just to recap, as people, well, you'd be on another planet if you didn't know, but it's Matt Emch, the YouTube channel Planet 412, which is growing from strength to strength, really, isn't it, Matt?
It's doing well. I'm going to have some new stuff coming out in the next few days. You know, I'm a sports broadcaster. So in the US, I just went from one, and I have a little bit of a sinus infection, so excuse me for the stuffiness. So I went from the semi-pro, and if you hear, I have to interrupt. If anybody didn't hear, I had dental work, so I feel like I'm talking funny. If I am, I apologize. Right. I went from American semi-pro football to now it is high school football season, and I am been busy as all heck. So it has, over the last couple of weeks, taken away from Planet 412, but I've gotten everything under control and I'm ready to start rolling again. So we'll get it going.
Well, that's brilliant. And you know, when you came on, I think probably be a year ago now, I'm pretty sure, and you told us about your experience, the Youngstown Dogman, which was just absolutely, you had us all kind of glued to our seats. But I wonder, I mean, we can obviously touch on that, and I'd like a kind of a thumbs up in chat if you do want to hear Matt talk about that. But I wonder if you could actually share some incredible encounters that have been shared with you on 241. Oh, 421, apologies, 421.
No, I'm sorry. I missed that last part. You cut out for a second.
Right. I want, well, obviously, you've got your incredible Youngstown Dogman encounter, your own experience. But before we get to any of that, I wonder if you would like to share some of your accounts that have been told to you on the channel, UFO related or anything. You just kick us off with a few and we'll get some questions for them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you know from having your channel, which is incredible, by the way. I love watching it. You know, I don't watch very many YouTube channels. I'm going to be honest with you, but yours is one of the handful that I do watch. So, you know, I really enjoy it. Now, I'm sure you get a boatload of things sent to you. You know, I get so many things sent to me daily. Some of them stand out. I had one sent to me by a hunter. You know, he was very nervous as well. You know, most people aren't real keen on sharing things like I have or you have. This gentleman didn't want to give his name and whatnot, but what he told me about was he had gone hunting and he spent the whole day deer hunting and wasn't having much luck. And he kept noticing as the day progressed, he'd heard, funny noises around him whenever he'd look around him. And, he said, I'm a hunter. I know how to look, if anything's surrounding me. Nothing. He said, I even looked up in the trees at one point and didn't see anything. Uh, didn't get any deer. And as the day was progressing, starting to get darker, he was thinking about getting back to his truck. And that's when he said everything started to go quiet. He said, even the crickets, after a few minutes, first it was all the animals in the forest. He didn't hear any squirrels, any birds, anything. And then all he was hearing was the crickets. And then all of a sudden they went quiet. And he knew that that usually means there's a predator in the area. Well, he got nervous and started to leave. And he had a little ways to go for his vehicle. And he started to noticing, what you've heard in a number of dogmen and Sasquatch experiences. As he would walk, he was getting, excuse me, as a sniff too, I apologize. And he was getting paralleled by something. He couldn't see it, but he noticed as he walked, it would walk. When he would stop, it would stop. So finally, he got to a spot where it opened up into a fork. And, excuse me 1 second there, Paul.
It's okay.
All right, I didn't want to do that on the microphone.
It's
so he
fine.
said he got to a fork and it opened, and he saw right away by a tree and I believe he said a large stone was a huge animal that he had never seen before. And he said it looked like a wolf, but almost like a cross between a wolf and a bear. And he was trying to figure this thing out. He knew it was looking at him. He had his gun. Not long after that, this creature stood up, and it was on 2 legs. And he said it was gigantic, a lot like the very similar stories we always hear. And he was horrified and knew that he was in big trouble. He sprinted to his truck, and he didn't think he was going to get there. He said he fell a couple times, and he finally got to his truck and was fumbling with the keys to hit the security to open the car. And just as he got in, he said his leg actually almost got cut off because this thing head-butted and hit into the door, and it threw him towards the middle of his vehicle. And he said, my leg was so close to being at the bottom before he pulled it up, it almost cut his leg off. Well, he's trying to fumble to, he dropped his keys, and he said that he didn't even think to himself he had a newer truck where he didn't need to put the keys in. So he's fumbling with his keys, not realizing he just needs to push the button. And as he's doing that, this dogman creature is breaking his window. It's ripping up the side of the truck. Finally, he gets this thing started. And as he's starting to pull away, this thing is actually pulling on the truck and actually stopped it from leaving a little bit. And then he hit it harder, and it yanked and pulled this thing on. And it was holding on. As it's holding on, it's ripping at his vehicle, and finally it let go, and he got away and was absolutely stunned and really messed up for about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, he contacted a couple of his buddies, and he told them about what happened about a week before then. they went back. And I didn't think this was very smart. And I even told the gentleman in the email, I said, not really a smart idea. But he did what he did. And they went back to the same area, not to hunt, but to look for this thing.
Did they go harm?
And they actually found either it or one of its pack members. And he said it looked like it was bigger than the one he saw before. And he said that they had taken a couple pot shots at it and missed. And finally, they just all started running. And he said his one buddy was a bigger guy. He had trouble running, so they had to go slower. And a couple times, this thing was right on them. And as they pointed their weapons at it, it knew what it was, and it stopped and went and hid itself. And they started taking off again. So they finally got back to his buddy's vehicle because his vehicle was in the shop. And he said, boy, was that a conversation I had to throw at the mechanic, by the way.
Do you know when you're talking about an account like that, and likewise myself and other people in chat who'd heard them, heard people relating these stories, do you think to yourself, Matt, I mean, I'm only listening to you tell it, it almost seems like at any point this thing could have got them. Everything's it, and I'm speaking for myself as well. It almost caught them. He just got in car, and it nearly caught up with his friend. Do you think all that's deliberate?
You know what? And they also just got back to the vehicle, and it had really even damaged this vehicle worse, and had almost crawled completely in the back window. So they got away. Again, to your comment, you hear a lot of some Sasquatch bluff charges, make you move, leave the area. They don't want you there. There's a lot of dogmen experiences I've heard, same thing. People feel like they're about to die. This thing's right on top of them, and then nothing happens. They're forced out. I believe that these creatures understand the fact that if they kill a human being, that there is going to be problems. I think there are moments where you have the missing 411. People disappear. Mr. Politis even has answered questions before that. He believes, he doesn't like to get into the cryptid stuff too often, but he said he believes some of them are because of those. There are some other people that have done documentaries and spoke about them. I don't know if you know who Dr. Russell Jones is. Russ Jones.
No, I don't know. He's
big in the cryptid community. Him and his partner, Brad, I wish I could think of the top of my head their channel. I had been interviewed on their channel, and we spoke about things that they had been involved with, as well as me. And he had said himself that he had spoken to a highway patrol officer who his wife and himself saw a giant Bigfoot. And the comment that the highway patrol officer said was it was roughly basically a little bit bigger than a sheet of plywood. So if you think of a full sheet of plywood, that's huge. And the officer said, and Dr. Jones agreed with him, that I'm not saying that all these people that are disappearing in the woods and in our parks and things like that, and he mentioned missing 411, is because of them. But I'm just saying, and this is a quote, I'm just saying, It was the size of plywood, and they would so easily be able to take a grown man and dispatch them and do what. So I believe, a number of other people believe, that these people that are going missing, a lot of them are from these cryptids. Again, going back to what you're saying, I do believe some of them purposely let people go. They play with them.
Do you think they play with fear, Matt? They seem to enjoy inducing fear in people. I mean, let's face it. Maybe they don't even need to induce fear, because when you see something like that, I think we'd all be lying if we said, "Well, it won't bother me. I'd be calm." It's not like looking at my little dog, is it? You're looking at something that's truly terrifying.
Right.
What do you think to the metaphysical part of these things? Then you've just talked about something the size of a sheet of plywood, 8x4, 4 foot wide, 8 foot tall, and then you hear hunters, and not just hunters. There's people in UK who claim to have seen these things,
right,
or creatures that don't quite fit the norm, and they've gone behind a tree that's 10-inch across, 10, and it's not come out of the side. What's happening there? Do you have any accounts like that?
Where let me understand that again. So
he's been walking, and it's just past a tree and never come out. The other part of the creatures just never surfaced, almost like they've just evaporated into thin air.
Oh, you mean so we're getting into the woo?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Oh, 100%. And anybody that's ever listened to my experience, I have to say I 100% believe in the woo. Obviously, when the being that we saw had left the building that we were in, it had I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but just to recap real quick.
Let's touch on some of it, Matt. Why not? I mean, we don't have to do the next hour and a half on that, but let's touch on some of it. Go on, because we're there.
Yeah. So what had happened when this creature was leaving the building, when the train had come by, it was just about to dispatch me. It was feet from me, if you recall. And when this train came by, it had done a 3-take looking back and forth at this train. And it gave me a look of, it wanted to get me, and it almost gave me a look of, "You're lucky. I'm letting you go because I'm out of here." And as it was leaving the building, it had run down a couple flights of stairs. And when it was on the last flight of stairs, it was probably midway, and it started to change shape into like basically an amorphous shadow. And the feet that were hitting the steps not long before that, all of a sudden they were just stumps underneath it. The arms were basically gone. You could see a couple points on the headish shaped area where the ears were, and the muzzle was a little bit noticeable, but it was just a big black mass. And it left the building in the blink of an eye. And, I also have to go back to the first thing that we all noticed, my friends and I, was that when this thing first showed itself to us fully, it looked at us when it heard my friend fall into this wall we had made. We saw those eyes that I have nightmares sometimes about them. They're just huge, orange, amber colored eyes that glowed. And it wasn't eye shine, for those of you that have never heard it before. They glowed like there was a power source behind them. There was something in this creature that was causing those eyes to glow very, very brightly. I 100% believe that was supernatural. I do think that there are some of these creatures out there that either for whatever reason, either maybe age or they're taught or learned, or just like some humans, just are gifted in some ways that others aren't. Possibly, maybe some of these things, it's the same way, and that they can't utilize whatever woo type thing that they have. Some Sasquatch might not be able to disappear or, camouflage themselves like others. Same thing with the dogman. I don't know. It's just a guess.
And so, since you've had that experience and now started talking about it openly, have you had anybody come forward from the area that said, I've seen something similar? Or
from my area?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ironically, not long after I had given my biggest interview on What Lurks Beneath with Josh Nonocchio, that one went viral. It's still growing. I think it's like over 2 million or something right now. But what had happened? Oh, I just went blank for a second. Remind me.
I'm just asking if other people have stepped forward and said,
thank you.
We've seen this, or we've seen something similar, or even UFO related anything. Is the area, does it have a name for things of high strangeness happening? Do you know what I mean?
Youngstown, Ohio is really well known for a lot of high strangeness. We have ley lines in Ohio. If you look them up online, you can see that there's ley lines that go through Ohio, specifically through the capital, Columbus, and it keeps going to the northeast tip where Youngstown is, and the ley lines go right under it. It's always been known for a lot of high strangeness, like some cryptid stuff in the areas where there are like parks and things like that. A lot of hauntings in a lot of the older houses. But what had happened with me was, like I was saying, after the What Lurks Beneath interview, I started getting messenger messages. When I started my channel, Planet 412, I started getting emails from people that had worked down there or work down there now. So what had happened immediately, not long after that, was I got an email from a gentleman who said, I just wanted you to know, Matt, that I believe you and have had experiences myself. I worked some umpteen years as a security officer down there. And, when I've talked about my experience, I've mentioned numerous times, where, when we were in that building and we built fires regularly, we'd always fear getting seen by, security or something. Well, apparently this gentleman said he worked it, and he said what they would do is every night they would have to, for whatever reason, they would have to walk the rail line for so far. And he said there would be nights that they would hear growls in the brush, in the real thick, because when you went in this area, you have to understand it was by the Mahoning River, which I've talked about before. And it was a very forested, wild area just outside of these areas of the steel mill and the blast furnace. So he said they'd walk this rail, and when they'd be close to the forested area, he said that they would hear, like I said, growls. They would see at night strange colors. Like he said to me, we thought they were orbs. They were large, like orange glowing orbs, he said, but they actually, after hearing my experience, he said, oh my God, it was probably the eyes of that thing. Right. And he said like I said, they'd hear growls once in a while. It would do the same thing with them. It would parallel them. It would walk as they walked, stopped when they stopped. And he said they'd have other weird stuff happens. He said that they had noticed a few times, and he didn't say he thought there was a correlation, but he said there was a few nights that they would be just kind of chilling out with him and another security guard as they were working, and they'd see strange lights in the sky. He said, we saw a UFO one time that was relatively low. Again, I can't say if those connected in any way, shape, or form. But
it's interesting though, Matt, that these locations, I mean, where you saw that, other things of a strange nature are being seen. I touched on the fact that you talked about this 8x4 size of a sheet of ply creature. And I'm saying, how can they just disappear? And my story, or my reasoning was, years ago, there's a guy, and his name was Paul Ogard, and he'll not mind me saying his name. And he contacted me because when me and Les were making Wolflands, and it weren't so much a cryptid, it was something really strange. And he said they'd been up to no good on this night. We're going back a lot of years. The he's okay now. He's kind of reformed character. He says, but we were carrying a bag of coins and a bar. He says, and we're walking along the road. And I've no fear in saying this. He's not something that he's told me not to say. And he said, me and my friend, he says, and where they were, I think they said they were on Swinemore Lane. So Les knows where that is. He said, and the police, this is the strangeness sort of, it don't just sort of add up to the cryptid sighting. He says a police car pulled up alongside of us and it's looking and windows down and they're looking. He says, and it's as though they can't see us. He said, it's weird. We didn't run. We tried. He says, but they just couldn't see us. He said, and then they drove past. He says, and we cut through an edge into a little bit of green park area. He said, and there's a tree, just one sapling. And we'll say when you look at it, it looks about 6 inch wide. Obviously, its circumference would be more. He said, and from nowhere, he said, this huge dog appeared on all fours. He says, and it were a chestnut brown colour, bigger than a Great Dane, really heavily muscled. He says, and I said to my mate, look at that. He says, and I think he said his friend didn't see it because he said it just went behind the tree. Obviously, if it's as big as what he's saying, as soon as its head's gone behind that tree, head'll appear at the other side. He said, and it just never returned. It had just gone. So you'd got like a bunch of strangeness. It's almost as though they weren't there or they were in some other sphere of existence when they were walking up that road, and a police car just the police car, they were looking for something. He said, but they were alongside of us and they just never even spoke to us. It was as though they couldn't see us.
Yeah.
So you got that to add to it as well. There seems to be lots of elements. You talked about orbs, Matt, the spheres of light. Do you have reports or do you have views on people who claim to see orbs in the forests where the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch is seen? Have you got anything to share on that?
I actually have a great quick story, but hold on 1 second here.
Yeah, no worries.
I need my water here because the numbness is making me dry. So I got a really good story for you. I had read this about 1 second again. I apologize.
It's all right. It's fine. We have a sick man in the building tonight, people, but it's
not sick, but I have a really bad sinus infection that's been going on for over a month. So I appreciate that, though.
No, it's okay. We appreciate you giving us your time, Matt. So
thank you. So what had happened was up in the area in Wisconsin where they have, right in the area of the Bray Road area, which if any of you know about,
as you said, Wisconsin, I was just writing Bray Road down. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bray Road Beast. I'm sure it's a dogman. It's a famous, area for sightings of dogmen. Uh, so, ironically, right in the area of Bray Road where they see this beast or dogman, there is a park not far from there. And I forget her name, but this woman had written a letter, and she talked about. I'm sorry, she was I believe a 14-year-old at what she was, and I want to mention this real quick. I have been looking into, for whatever reason, there is a correlation between people when they're 14 years old, like myself and my friends. And I cannot tell you how many others I've heard experiences where people are saying that they were 14 years old and they had this experience or that experience. And I'm finding more and more and more, and I'm making mental notes of it. And I don't understand why, but for some odd reason, 14 is an age. I don't know, maybe it's a time when your brain is developing a certain way, or maybe the vibrations in your body are a certain way when you're 14, which bring you into that area where you're kind of able to see these things. I don't know.
Emotional change, the people going through puberty, all sorts of
Right,
things.
right.
It's
There's
it's
something about it.
obviously it is a massive change in a person's life, isn't it? When you get into your teens, so
Yeah.
maybe that attracts the woo and these unknown forces. But
Something about it. Yeah. So I'm gonna do a lot more studying on that and figure that one out if possible. But this girl was 14. She was at a summer camp, and this one evening she was out and she was with some of her friends, but they had walked a little ways ahead of her. She said she looked across, and this is a true story. She looked across the lake and she saw in the bushes a dog man, and it was down, not on all fours, but it had bent down, and it had its hands out in front. She said, I saw it. She saw its hands. And she, just before she got her friend's attention, she went, it turned, and she said she was looking at it, and she said even when she went, oh, like to tell them, she saw its ears perk up, and it turned around and it ran. It knew that she was going to call them. She screamed at her friends, "Oh my God, did you guys see that? Oh my God." And they're like, "No, what did you see?" And she told them, and they're like, "Oh, you're nuts. If you don't see it." A lot of people have trouble believing that stuff. But when you really do, it changes you forever. Well, she was absolutely blown away and enthralled. And instead of being nervous or scared from this thing, what had happened to her was the next night, she waited until everyone went to bed. And not the smartest thing in the world to do, she went by herself when everyone was asleep. Okay. Easy way to disappear. And she goes and takes a walk around. She said it took a while to get around to the other side of the lake. And again, she said it was in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning, and she's by herself looking for a giant unknown creature. She went to the exact area where she knew she saw it. And as she came through some trees and whatnot towards the water in the same area where she saw, she said all of a sudden she was looking down at her feet to make sure she didn't trip. She lifted her head up. Lo and behold, there is a basketball sized red orb floating above the ground, and it's moving slowly just away. As she said, you know, she was blown away, and she started walking after this thing and stepped on a twig or a big branch and snap. She said this thing stopped and rotated, which she took that as it would turn around and looked at her. And she just was mesmerized staring at this thing. And then as she took a couple steps towards it, boom, gone, shot through the woods. Now, my thought and a number of other people's thoughts are, you know, she was in that same area where she saw this dog man. I have a strong belief that, again, maybe not all of them, but some of them have the ability to turn into other things. Maybe this thing was the sphere. Maybe this orb had the ability to make itself look like something that human beings would be horrified of and would not come near it. But she was absolutely floored. She believed that this thing was the dog man, one and the same. And I kind of have a belief that that's a very strong possibility.
Yeah, you know, we get lots of reports here about light. I call them the light forms, ILFs, intelligent light forms, light form phenomena, presenting in the areas where the cryptids have been seen. I mean, I always kind of cite myself and Lee Hayward's sighting in 2019 on November the 14th, because we later got years later, we got a report of a cryptid sighting on November the 12th. We know it's not the same day, but 2 days before, within a mile. And, you know, I just think it's too much of a coincidence for it not to have a connection, Matt, you know? So do you think then that I mean, obviously this girl, just jumping back to it, she must have been very brave, because I don't think I'd have dared to.
Either very brave or not.
Yeah,
very
not very smart. Yeah, yeah. We're both on the same page with that one. Then, do you think that the orbs then are actually, we come away with that assumption that they are transforming into these creatures?
You know, let me switch over to, and I really want to real quick say, I noticed Peter Armstrong.
Yeah, we could probably, if he's probably come out in a question. This, Les, have we got some questions?
He had just said he was 14 when he had his big experience. So,
well, there you go, Peter. Yeah. Oh, let's have a look. Yeah. I see that myself. Yeah, biggest experience. Yeah. So I'll tell you what. Go, Matt.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, you know, switch to another cryptid, Bigfoot. How many times have we heard reputable people talk about they've seen Bigfoot holding orbs in their hands? Numerous ones. Yeah. It makes you wonder, are they holding their baby? Are they holding another Sasquatch? Is that some kind of part of them that gives them the ability to disappear? You know, there's a new video I saw out there that shows a being, and I've seen a couple that have made me think. Now, you got to realize, obviously, that there's AI out there, but I've seen some very convincing video of some type of being, be it a Bigfoot. Some people have said that they saw a Bigfoot in an area, and then they saw a predator effect being running away or whatnot. A new video, A Flash of Beauty. It's a Bigfoot video that was.
Yeah, we've seen that. Yeah.
Brett and his wife Jill made that really cool movie. And the one woman saw what she thought was a Bigfoot. Well, no, she did. She said she saw a Bigfoot peek up. First, she saw its hand reaching towards something, and she saw its head, and when she noticed it and it noticed her, it ran. Well, then she also noticed what ran after it not far, was a being that was, she said, looks just like the predator. It was cloaked. I really think these things can do that.
Yeah, I would agree. There's so many variables, and what you're talking about now. There'll be some people in chat. There'll be some people listen to this afterwards. They'll just be rolling their eyes. Same, likewise, what I talk about, they'll just be rolling their eyes and thinking, "Yeah, whatever." But
Yeah,
there's too many people coming out with stories similar to what you're sharing, what I'm sharing, what people in chat, because let's face it, everybody who's listening to this now, they're all looking for a little bit of an answer to their part of a huge puzzle. So,
right.
before rolling your eyes, people, not that you're doing it. I mean, we've got a great bunch of people, but just
I
think to
agree.
yourself that there's a lot of truth in what Matt's talking now. But I want to jump now to Les in a moment and see if we've got any questions, if that's okay. I just want to say hello to Laura, my daughter. Hi, Laura. And Blue Shift's in.
Hi, Laura.
Right.
Yeah.
Go on,
Well, the good news is we've got some good questions in for you tonight, Matt.
brilliant.
And I've got to thank Jojo for the monetary donation to the channel tonight. Always appreciated, and thanks very much. So the first thing is not so much a question, but he's 64. Matt, every time you share your Dogman experience, I tear up. So powerful.
I first of all, hello, and hello to everyone else again. Um, I would like to think that because I really had this experience, I convey, how much it has affected me through my interviews, and I think that's why Hizzo and so many other people have wrote to me, saying a lot of the same stuff. Um, I know we all know there are some cringeworthy stories out there that we're like, oh boy, that's a whopper. But then there's some that we know, or at least a lot of us believe that they're true. I'm very proud that I have had, for the most part, most people all support me, and the fact that I'm able to, resonate that experience with people and have, a comment like that means a lot to me. That means they believe me. So thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to a question then, Matt. And thanks for that, by the way. Does Matt feel like the Dogman / Wolf like being that he felt had chosen him, singled him out, and had any other intention for doing so, like the man speak in the dream?
I do. And you bring up, John, a very good point that I had the mind speak, dreamscape dream. And, again, I'll always say this. I'm not 100% positive that, it wasn't just the most detailed dream I've ever had in my life, but I really, truly believe there was something else going on there. And in that dream, when it did mind speak to me, it told me straight out, I came for you all those years ago. So, it did single me out for whatever reason. I don't know. I was thinking a little bit about it. I was talking with my family about this, and they believe that possibly, it singled me out, excuse me, or it came after me, excuse me, is because, I freaked my family out and have since I was a kid. I do things like, say something and they'll happen. I have, I'm not saying I'm a psychic or anything, but I do have these moments of premonition. So much so that I freak my family out. So I've had a number of strange things happen to me as I've grown up. Maybe I have something in me, like, some people are just, for whatever reason, I've heard someone call it touched or something, that some just have experiences regularly more than others, or, some people don't have them at all. Maybe it's, maybe because I'm sensitive to these things, it shows me. I don't know.
It's almost as though when a person has seen and experienced these things, you are touched, you're marked. Do you know what I mean? And there is a follow on. And I remember you telling me that you'd had that dream, and it's not unusual that the man that's asking question is asking you, because he'll have got his own reasons. And I spoke to this man, and I'm not going to go into detail, John, don't worry. But I spoke to this man only a few weeks ago, and what he had to share with me were quite amazing. So I know that your answer there will have resonated with him. You actually said the right thing, I'm pretty sure, and he's probably nodding his head now. But fascinating.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question from Melinda. Matt, have you had anyone tell of encounters where a clicking sound is heard before the encounter?
Yeah, I've had quite a few of them. I've had a couple people tell me they've heard clicking from a Sasquatch, Dogman, and there was one of them that stood out, that they had heard clicking and then clicking like really fast and one after another. And it, according to them, and again, I always say this, I cannot prove who is telling the truth and who isn't. I have a gut feeling, just like I'm sure you guys do, about some you hear that you're just like, again, oh my gosh, that's that's a terrible one. But then there are some that just, they resonate with you, and you're like, wow, that's interesting. So my point I'm getting at is this one person who spoke to me about clicking said that they saw like a lizard person, and they were actually on vacation in Peru. And when they went on a like kind of like I don't know what the number, they not number, the not expedition, it was kind of like a camping excursion.
Yeah.
And when they were walking to this area they were going to camp out by a waterfall, she saw, after hearing this clicking, and again, she said at one point it got to where there was maybe, real fast, like 6 to 8 clicks. And she noticed, after she started looking around, and she was at the back of the line, which made me think, oh boy, maybe this thing's trying to grab her. But she saw, as what she described, was a lizard person, and it was clicking at her.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And no, to surprise me.
And it just disappeared.
Tetrastatic. Go on, Les.
Okay, yeah, Matt, could these sightings that made themselves known to you as vividly be just a clever continuation of the Men in Black to scare us, of the orbs and the UFOs that many people have recollections at the time?
You know what? I think some of them are. You get into disinformation. The government, any government in power, we all know that they utilize disinformation for whatever reason. I think some of them they do. I think there's definitely situations like, for instance, maybe in certain areas, the military is doing something. Maybe they're building an underground facility, or they're having, exercises, or they're looking for something themselves that has nothing to do with supernatural, and so they spread this rumor, oh, don't go in there, there's a Bigfoot or a dog man, it'll kill it almost killed me, it almost got me. So I definitely think that some of that happens. So let's see. Let me read the other part of that. Settings that
Up here.
Yeah, and again, Men in Black. Some people laugh about that. That I believe they're 100% real. We've heard many stories about that. So I don't know. Some of it, yeah, I think that they do utilize that. Did I answer the question?
I think you did.
Well,
yeah. So let's
yeah,
jump to another one. Let's.
The real winner. It's not a question, but an observation. Seeing what can only be described as the Mothman, it appeared humanoid and of flesh, but it's surrounded in a blue, ghostly glow, as if half alive, half dead. Its eyes were blood red, and it made eye contact.
Wow.
Yeah, I know
great.
the Mothman
Yeah.
by heart about that one. Obviously, not too far from where I live in Ohio, down in West Virginia. It happened. Incredible experience that those people had. I believe that thing was real 100%.
Is are the similarities with what Real's saying there in his description? Because to be honest with you, Matt, after we've done questions, I'd like to talk about Mothman to you a little bit.
Sure.
But can you, blood red eyes, is that a common description for this thing?
Yeah, its eyes is the first thing that everybody always talks about when you hear the older descriptions that were the original ones. They always said those eyes, those red eyes. Some say glowing, some just say so red and piercing they couldn't look away. Some people have said that staring into the Mothman's eyes caused them to have eye problems and burns around the eyes or something like that. Okay. So, yeah, definitely the red eyes is one of the most well known.
Okay, is there any more questions, Les?
Thanks for that question. And Steve Moore, hi guys. I mean, a question probably could apply to both of you. Is this a linear thing within your family? So you can start with you, Matt.
Yeah. So, one of the things I have been really believing and looking into is that, and I've spoken to a number of people that are really well respected in the, supernatural encrypted world. It seems very familial. And what I mean like that is if you start to look into people that have had experiences, or most importantly, multiple experiences, you will usually find out that there are people that have had it before them or after. And, I think I've told my my great aunt's story in Lebanon before on the channel about she was basically, for all intents and purposes, attacked by a jinn when they were living in Lebanon. She had that experience. I have some cousins that some cousins that have had a number of ghost type things happen to them over the years. And then, getting into, I had a type of ghostly type of something happen, me and my younger brother when I was younger. And then we jump into what happened to me when I was 14. And then we jump into what happened to me at Beaver Creek State Park. which is the second video on Planet 412 that I've done. And then, then I've had some of the other, the dreams and such. So I 100% believe that in certain families that it is passed on or familial in some way.
Yeah,
Okay,
interesting.
thanks for that, Matt. And I'll be back a little bit later, guys.
Okay. I just want to, thanks for answering them, Matt. And how are you feeling? Okay, can we go on for another?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, all good. And we talk about families and this thing running in, like going back in time or forward in time. I don't really recall talking to my parents much about this, And so if things happened for them, I'm not sure. My dad, let's just say he weren't the greatest of people, not even as a child, and he went away.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's just obviously it's all on water on the bridge, but he didn't talk about much. But the things that had happened to me from childhood, I started sharing with my family. Well, I didn't even tell my wife when we first got married, but eventually she found out, girls knew. And Laura's in chat now. Our Laura's there, and she's youngest, and she knows. You were talking about clicking sounds earlier, and people when at the height of the activity, and I know Laura will remember this, and in this property, it's huge house, huge old Victorian house, we would hear, it weren't so much clicking, Matt, and I don't know if people in chat will relate to this. It was static. It was like electrical snap of, like, when you touch someone, and you could hear it, and it sounded like it were next to your ear. You could hear electrical clicking, and we also saw what we call drops of light. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that, where you'd walk into a room and picture a teaspoon, and it just looked like mercury, it looked like silver just dropping to the floor.
No, I've never seen that.
And I think Laura were talking about seeing them at home. She might correct me if I'm wrong here. Not long since, but so there were all that kind of thing, like the electrical clicking sound. And a few weeks ago, Matt, we tried to interview Ron Moorhead. Ron's internet connection was terrible. So we're doing
just to interrupt real quick, Mr. Moorhead's a friend of mine, and I interviewed him. I did, but the second time it worked, because the first time he was, God bless him, he was having all kinds of microphone problems and whatnot. So, he I think he is so amazing and incredible, but I don't think he is the most technologically advanced guy around.
Well, I would agree, but and I put myself in that box as well. If I'm being truthful, I'm not that brilliant. If all was wrong with computer, I usually give Les a ring, Chris Turner a ring, or my friend Mark. But he were having terrible problems with it. But so we ended the stream. But before that, he were talking about clicking. I think it were clicking sounds that people were hearing close to the home after encounters and that. And I said to Ron, and I think it was something he'd not thought of, because I saw his eyes roll and think, oh yeah. I said, what if this is echolocation, like what the whales do to locate their prey? And they'll make click. There's a fly here that's really annoying. They'll make clicking sounds, and we know that these things can mimic. We know that these things can project their voices. We're talking about the Sasquatch now. I'll jump back to Warncliffe Woods and the
baby sounds.
Yeah, babies crying. Warncliffe Woods, the guys trapped in those woods heard the woodland exploding, branches splitting, everything. But there were no forest on, woodland destroyed when the light appeared. He said it was just like gunshots going off and all sorts. So they've got some way of projecting sound, I believe. I know we've kind of jumped about a little bit there, but what do you think the military know about these things, Matt?
I think they know quite a bit. I think they know a ton. I could just go back to one thing.
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard the stories about when Mount St. Helens erupted.
Okay.
And I don't
Wanna
know
hear
if
this.
you've ever heard about, they were, gathering up all the
They
poor dead
found them. Yeah.
animals, and they found some Sasquatch. And then there's another story that goes along with finding a couple dead Sasquatch, which I 100% believe. Um, there's also another story which is a little harder to believe, but it was pretty detailed and told by a gentleman who was very respected and well known, not known to, excuse me, not known to do these things. And he spoke about, after they had found the two, they had got a group together. It took a truck, and they had a basically like a men in black type of guy come up and say, "We're going to need your help." I guess I am getting a little more sick. I apologize. And they basically had driven around and had a Sasquatch in the back of their truck, and it would walk up to openings of caves and scream or yell or whatever. And if it heard something, it would go in, and it said it found some really hurt other Sasquatch, some female in Little Woods, or if it didn't hear anything, it would go in as well, and it would bring its dead out. And there was a lot more to the story in detail, and you could look this up online. It's on there. Just be detailed about what you're looking for. And one of the things that I grabbed at the end of it, they were saying that when they had separated from the government person, and he was talking, I think he said in like an Indian or an American Indian language with this thing. And as they left, because they helped it, they said, this thing had looked at them and like gave them a nod, like thank you, which I thought was incredible.
Absolutely. Do you think is there any truth then in that there was once a relationship with First Nations people and these beings? They just looked at them as another race of beings.
Very good. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. There's a very, very many stories told about them living, as you said, living side by side with Sasquatch, that they might have even taught the Indians how to speak, that their language, Native Americans, were actually taught to them by the Sasquatch. Um, they worked by them in the fields, farming and hunting, and I do believe those,
Yeah.
because those were told by other Native Americans.
So where does it leave you now, Matt? After having you 14 years old, you had your incredible experience. Where does it make you want to? Do you ever visit any remote places during the hours of darkness with groups of other people, or with your family, or do you kind of stay away from them because you feel like you've had a brush with something terrifying?
Oh no, I don't. I'm not staying away from them at all. I absolutely love doing it. And when I was in Beaver Creek State Park and had that experience there, um, and got that EVP of the grunt, that I went up to the top of that hill to where they said there was a portal of some type that, Sasquatch and other, supernatural beings utilized. I went up there by myself. And when I did that EVP, I got that EVP. I am actually getting ready in the next week or two to go down to the area. Sorry,
All right, no
go
problem.
down to the area where I had my experience, even though the blast furnace I'm so sorry, everybody.
Listen, it's okay. You're the one that's suffering, not us. So we're able to put up with this, Matt. It's okay.
So I'm going to go down, and it will be on Planet 412. I'm going to go down to the blast furnace area. Even though it's destroyed and gone, I'm going to go into the area where I had my experience. I also have another experience that I'm going to be doing, to the dismay of my wife. She does not want me to go. I'm not going to say exactly where, but all I'm going to say is that I'm going to go to one of the most haunted asylums in the United States. I'm not going to say which. And it is so well known for being immensely haunted. Now, what my wife is upset about is she does not want me to bring anything home.
Do you know, you must be on my on the same path here, because I would just, when you'd finished, I was going to say, what about attachments? What are your views on that?
You know, I believe that they do happen, and I'm going to take every precaution that I can. Now, there are things that you can do that can protect you. Will it always work? Even when I don't know. I'm gonna hope it. I don't want to bring anything home either, but I really, really want to go here. Where this place is, and that will be on Planet 412. So I'll let everybody know about that. That'll be like one of the big ones that I do. And I'm go ahead.
Just before we jump to, we'll do a little bit on Mothman. Let's talk about Planet
412.
412. I was looking for it then. I can't even see his names. And there we go. Thanks, Les.
Thank you.
And what can people find on there besides your own account?
Well, they can find a number of different stories and experiences with different types of cryptids. I have the regular stories, like you see there at the top, my experience, and others. I do storytelling as well. There is also faceless narrations of experiences that people have sent emails to me, and I'll put like a graphic up, and then I will read those experiences on there. There are also live streams that have been recorded. One of the best live streams I've ever had response to that still gets people watching it is the one with you.
Oh, thank you.
And it's going right there on the.
There he is. Look, he's a bit erratic, that fella. Isn't he? Look at his arms going.
So, and I'm actually going to focus more on storytelling, and that's where I get an experience of somebody or a well-known one, and I will physically talk about that experience, and there will be like my other ones, graphics there and sounds in the background. I'm also going to do something very, very soon where there is, and I know a lot of people like these, where you'll get like a video and I will talk about it. Like there is this one young lady. I wish I had the video right now for me to slap it up in here. Did you ever watch the channel, the Impossible channel?
I don't, if I'm being truthful, but
it's a great channel. He's got millions of subscribers, and the guy does an amazing job. But there's this one on there, and what he has is this young lady. Well, he'll look around and find videos all over the internet, and anything that grabs him, he'll throw on there. It's all usually high strangeness, supernatural, aliens, and things like that. But what he had that really blew my mind, and I'm gonna talk about it, and ask people's opinions and give my comments on it, is this young lady. She was from Ohio, actually, and she went at dusk into the inner part of the woods, which that's the easiest way for a human being to disappear, not
Right.
just from cryptids or monsters or
Very
whatever
true.
you want to, but just people are
All
not,
right.
there's not good people. So she went and she decided to go looking around in this I forget what park she was in Ohio. I don't know how close it was to me, but she went inside and it was getting even darker, obviously, inside. And what happened was she started to hear voices like mumbling. And after a little while, she started looking around with her phone light, and lo and behold, she sees at the top of this hill eye shine. And it was not of an animal on all fours. It was something on two. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This was one of the scariest real videos I've ever seen personally. And I really, truly believe that this woman's experience was legitimate because you could hear the absolute panic and horrified just comments and the way, you can tell when people are really being real and serious. This woman was horrified, and she realized she was in trouble. And this, in my opinion, was exactly how the missing 411 goes. This woman was a hair away from disappearing and no one ever seeing her again. And you could see this thing on two legs. It was standing real tall, and it was almost like looking at her from afar, like what are you doing in here? Like Eddie was even surprised she was there. And when she realized it was there, she turned around and she tried to leave the woods as fast as she can. And she finally got out in an opening, and she thought she was home free. Well, she turned around and she sees right at the wood line, this thing is standing there, and it's looking at her, and it was actually down, like not on all fours, but squatted down. And she had looked at it and said, "What is that?" And it stood up and it started walking after her. And all you could see was it was just a huge, like, there had to be hair, but it was like black. She said she saw hair, and its eyes were shining because she had her light on her phone. And she turned around and started running, and this thing was walking behind her. And at one point, she turned back around and yelled, "Leave me alone, leave me alone." And this thing squatted down and stopped for a minute and then got back up and started chasing her again. She finally got to the road where other cars would drive through the park. She had stopped her video, but I'm telling you, and I'm going to put this, I'm going to do a reaction video on this, and I'll give you that video as well. I'll send it to Les here in a second.
Okay.
Horrifying, and 100%, I think it was real.
It sounds pretty frightening, to be honest with you, doesn't it? And jumping from that, then you touched on the Mothman, and you said you've got knowledge of that. Do you want to share a little bit of that? And first said, well, as long as it takes, because we want to get to some questions before we close this down.
Yeah,
but,
sure. So,
or the giants. Have you got any knowledge or stories about the giants of Kandahar?
You know what? It's ironic you bring that one up. So I have a very a good friend of mine who was going to do, and I'm a little upset with him, but I can't begrudge him. I have a friend of mine who was a ranger in the military. He had for a while said that he would give his first ever interview to me because we're friends, and he said he was gonna do it because I had said, have you ever thought about giving an interview? And because what happened was him, his wife, and me were driving up or driving down, I'm sorry, to Hocking Hills in Ohio that have huge Bigfoot encrypted conferences down there. In Hocking Hills, the woods, if you look up on Google Maps and that, you'll see how gigantic these woods are down there. So we were driving down there, we were talking, and at one point his wife said, "Oh, hey, man, about," and I'll just say his name is John. And she'll say, John was part of that group that killed the giant of Kandahar, right? And I was in the passenger seat of the truck, and I went, wait a minute, what are you kidding me? And he looked at me and he said, yeah. He goes, I was. He said, so long story short was he was a ranger. He's long retired, and if you know the experience of what happened with the giant of Kandahar, you know that there was a group of soldiers that had went to that area to flush out terrorists in tunnels and in the mountain and whatnot, and they disappeared. Well, what happened was a secondary group of rangers had been sent out to find them. And what they had found was a giant that was roughly, I don't know, 10 to 12 feet tall, red hair, 2 rows of teeth. But what he told me, and he still apologizes that, but he actually got scared about when it came down to doing the interview. He said, man, I would you hate me if I backed out? He goes, because I was warned when I was part of that, and we signed things that that we swore we'd never discuss this, and if we did, we would be held accountable. And he said, I don't know if, being as old as I am now, that they would hold true to me signing that stuff. He said, I'm scared about it. And I said, well, why would I hate you? I don't want you to take your family's livelihood and your life in your own hands. So I was disappointed, I have to be honest, because it was going to be huge. And what he had told me was there were some inconsistencies in some of the stories out there. And he said what one of them was they had already known what occurred. They knew that that first group was killed because one of the gentlemen that was killed with the group had put a call out what was happening. And as he was on the radio, he was killed as well. And anybody that doesn't know, they were eaten by this giant cannibal. Another thing that what happened, if you don't know, guys, is this second group went, and he said since they already knew what they were facing, they had set up outside of the cave, and he was a sniper. And he was actually between a boulder and like a rock face. So he was kind of in between, hidden. They had a number of them all set up in different areas. And I think he said they sent a robot in or something to flush it out. And bless you. We're both coughing and sneezing. So when this thing came out, he said that this thing knew where they all were. It must have been watching them from inside. And he said, there's no way any human being on the planet would ever have seen where I was. He said, when he was looking through his scope at this thing, he said, Matt, you can believe me if you want to or not. I don't care, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I was looking through my scope. I was a few hundred yards away, and this thing looked right at me through my scope. He said it saw me, it knew. And he said it did a quick look around the area, scanned, and as it did, it looked and saw me. He said my blood ran cold, and then we got the order to start shooting, and they started shooting, and it took a little bit for them to put it down, but they put it down. One of the other things that a lot of people don't know is that there was a village not far from where this thing had its cave. And in that village was basically half of a telephone pole that was in the ground where it was standing up, and connected to that telephone pole was chains and like handcuffs. And they sacrificed people in their area to this thing, so it wouldn't just come into their little town and kill everybody. So that's something, else that a lot of people don't know. The other stuff that happened, where they waited for a Chinook to come and they loaded it on and everything, and then they took it back to the base and other people saw it, and all that happened. But those were a couple of the things that weren't consistent.
It's a story that really fascinates me. I sort of said a few words, and without any knowledge, I said a few words about it a few weeks ago. If anybody had got any information on this, because I've watched a few, streams and things that people have put out talking about it. Plus, I know somebody that were in the military that had not seen that, got no knowledge of that, but had seen blue spheres of light in the area and things. Once again, we've got spheres of light, and so how long ago are we going back with that then, Matt?
Right off the top of my head, I forget when it happened. This was in the 90s, I believe. Yeah. So I just don't know the exact year.
And you think about it and you think, Christ, this just there'll be, once again, people rolling their eyes or listen to this afterwards thinking impossible. But we've got groups of people coming forward from all walks of life, reporting the incredible, reporting the impossible constantly. So, believe in the impossible, people, because these things are happening. So we're not going to go to questions just yet, unless Les thinks we've got questions enough, and put the thumbs up if we have, Les, because I just want to touch on the Mothman, because I know you've got a bit of knowledge on that, Matt, and then we'll let you get rested up in about 15 minutes.
Well, okay. I would have answered some of the questions for sure.
Yeah. We'll do that. Oh, he's back. So let's do that then.
Okay. And one of them, Paul, is what your Laura was informing Tony Worrell. That Tony Worrell is asking, did you know our family house was haunted before we moved to it? I was 5 when we moved to Brid. So I'm not sure.
No, not at all, Laura. No, you can see how much we've talked about it. No, not at all. This is Matt's show, but I just want to
No, please. I want to know.
We bought this property, lock, stock and barrel, even chamber pots under bed, cutlery on sideboard, everything, family pot, pictures up, the lot. Because what had happened was an elderly couple had lived in it all their life, brought their family up. The elderly gentleman passed away. She married a childhood sweetheart. that lived from, I think you were from Sheffield. And unfortunately, they never made a will. So here's a lesson to us all, because she passed away and he inherited the lot, which meant nothing to him. And he moved back to Sheffield, and this house went up for sale with everything, all its contents, the job lot. So, but that's a long way around Laura's question. No, we didn't know, Laura. We'd no idea. We just bought this huge rambling old house, and yeah, that was that. So that's answered that one.
I'll just put this one up. Yeah, just put this one up for Matt.
I like. Is that your dog behind you there?
Oh yeah, this is Bobster. He's fast asleep. Look.
Right, well, you just woke him up.
Yeah. Aren't we? We're all right, aren't we, mate? Yeah.
What's the dog's name again?
Well, it's Bobby, but we call him Bobster. He'll be in Forest in North Yorkshire in the morning with me. That's where he's going.
So adorable. We're huge dog people.
Well, obviously, this dog, I mean, it won't put a really good defense up against a rabbit, really, you know, but he's just a great companion. So and that's how I like him.
All right. Question from Melinda. What does 412 represent, Matt? I will go to the channel after the True Proof interview.
Thank you, Melinda. So 412 represents a few things. So right off the bat, that used to be my home address when I lived in Youngstown, Ohio. I live in the outer area around. I don't live in Youngstown anymore, but I live 25 minutes from there. So 412 was my address. It was 412 Laura Avenue was my street. My house doesn't exist anymore. So, but on top of that, the number 412, you know, numbers hold a lot of information in them, and the specific combination 412 in that order, if you look it up, and I did with my wife one day, it's angelically connected. And when I watched this video with my wife about the meaning of 412, the number, we were blown away, because it was so amazing how everything in it connected to me in my life and a lot of the things that have happened to me. It's really incredible. So you know, that those numbers, or that number combination, just on top of my address, means the world to me, because of how, you know, amazing, you know, that description of it, you know, was me. So there you go.
Brilliant. I didn't know that myself, Matt, but thank you very much. And thanks for the question. Let's have a look. I think it's
my wife brought me a tissue.
That's good.
Okay, we'll throw this one up. John Paul Body. I agree with Matt, and yes, Paul, it does resonate with, for sure. I think both Matt's and my own experiences cross over and help shine light into the missing aspects of each other's accounts. So
I would love to hear John Paul's experience sometime.
Yeah, it's more than interesting. It's really good. I'm looking forward to meeting up with this guy, and yeah, I'm sure you will.
Tom DeRose once experienced while asleep outside Actual near Bempton a totem pole and like a flute-like sound. Have you experienced this? I ask because of the dreaming you mentioned.
Tom, I have never experienced a flute sound. That's really interesting. I've heard, you know, just some, you know, wood type sounds, you know, you know, other than that, nothing out of the ordinary. So that's really wild. Flute. Have you ever heard of that before?
No, I'm just the totem pole, and it's fascinating, and yeah, it's another one, Tom. You know, if you want to share a bit of that with us, we're all ears. It's fascinating.
Tom's got another question. Do you think it's changed over time? Orbs don't seem to be in all descriptions of encounters.
You know what? You do look at what I'm enthralled by as some of the old um, paintings that are out there. Like we're talking old religious paintings and murals painted in places where you see like a UFO in the sky and things like that. I know I've seen a couple times in the past. I can't quote which one it is, but I've seen old paintings where there are orbs. So I don't know if it's changed over time. Uh,
It's probably our descriptions and our terminology's changed. And I'm not saying you're
yeah,
wrong,
I would imagine.
but we've got Will o' the Wisp here in the UK. People
Right.
talking about spheres of light, and they say Will o' the Wisp, but it's usually
Or
the same
Foo Fighters during
the Foo
the
Fighters
war.
during the war. Yeah. Spheres of light, and the same orange spheres that people are seeing today. I think. Well,
Okay. Yeah, and Steve Moore, straight to the point. Are they just not huge apes that we just don't know of?
I don't believe they're just apes. I think they're more than that. You've heard so many descriptions of them being they look like human features in them. I really truly believe now. Could they come from Gigantopithecus? Possibly. I don't know. I really have a feeling that they are the missing link. I think that they are part us and part primate. I think they are cut in between both of them, and they have come out to what they are.
There does seem to be a lot of attributes to these things, though, that sort of move them away from just, as Steve's saying, just a giant ape that's undiscovered, some kind of hominid that we've not discovered. You know, when you talk about the motion that these things travel, they walk as though they're on a conveyor belt or almost floating.
Yeah.
The self-illuminating eyes, the ability to sort of just step out of existence. I'm not saying you're wrong here, Steve. It could be that they are just giant apes.
They could be 100%.
But they've developed abilities that to us seem like magic. I don't know.
Okay.
You know what? Before we answer Peter's, after Tom's, there was Mark Jones actually had a question at 3:08. What's the most bizarre cryptid Matt has heard of? I didn't want to not answer his, so please keep Peter's up. The most bizarre cryptid I've heard of. Ooh, I've heard of a lot. I don't know. The Loveland Frogman is one of the stranger ones I've heard of. A giant frog. I think the Pukwudgie is another strange one. That's a good question. How about you guys?
Well, apart from I know you guys call it Dogman, and I still stick with werewolf. And people, and I think
what I like werewolf too.
Well, I think where people stumble is they think that I'm referring to something that's transforming from man to beast,
Yeah,
and I'm not
either.
That's just for movies and the full moon, and that's not the reality of this thing. I don't believe.
Correct.
But I think that's as strange as it gets for me. But there are reports of sort of rake type beings and other things.
Yeah.
You'll get these reports, but it's fascinating. And I'm sure as many as we say or what we're talking about, the people in chat who've got different variations of what we're saying.
How about you, Les? What do you think?
I just don't know. I really just don't know. I'm sitting on the fence on this one. Yeah.
There's no wrong with that, Les.
You know what else? I'll mention this. We've heard of some of the different types of aliens. They say there's all these different kinds, and I tend to believe the government knows. I've heard of, and I'm sure you guys have heard of, the giant praying mantis.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be one of the more wild ones to see.
Definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You wouldn't
Right.
like it. Pretty incredible predator, and they're only that big, aren't they? You know, in the actual species. But go on, Les.
Yeah, Peter Armstrong is being hanging about with this question. Matt, do you believe that national parks are deliberately made such by governments because they know that they are areas of high strangeness? That's a good question.
I don't think that they're deliberately made. I think some of them. Oh wait, I know what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying now. Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you. As I thought about that for a second, or they make the land unaccessible as well. You have a number of those places throughout, I'm sure, every country out there. But yeah, I do agree, Peter. I do think that there are instances in some of our parks where there are, crazy things found, like maybe a portal or things like that, and they say, okay, well, we can't have people going through these areas or hunters going through there or whatnot. And that real quick, I want to mention this. The government absolutely knows about Bigfoot and dogmen and such. They don't talk about them because, let's be honest, where they hang out. They're in forests and preserves and such. You admit as a government that these things are out there. One of the biggest industries in the world gets shut down, the logging industry. So, I think it's going to be a long time until government says that they're real.
Have you had any park rangers reach out to you, Matt, or have you
I
had
had
any
one.
requests?
Thank you for asking that. Yes, I did. I had one. He is an ex-park ranger. He actually wants to do now. He wants it to be confidential, but he wants me to tell some of his experiences. And I'll tell one of them that has happened, that he has seen 100% said Sasquatch are 100% real. He's had a number of UAP events that have happened. And I will, ask him in my video if he'll at least allow me to blur him or whatnot. I don't know if he will, but he said he would at least do the audio part.
Yeah.
I want to ask him about his opinion on the people disappearing, i.e., like missing 411. And just to give you a real fast, short description there, he 100% believes that a number of these people that have disappeared in some of our parks are because of some of these cryptids. And then he said there's other stuff going on there as well, portals and things like that. He said, if you try and get the park registry or any forest ranger powers that be to give you a list of the missing people, you can't get it. They won't give it. So he said there's a lot more going on than anybody has any idea.
Just to jump in, and thanks for that, Matt. But I noticed that Dragonborn had said, "Did you get my question, Alison?" And while you were talking with Les, then I have scrolled up and I can't see it. And I know you'll have sent it, but this does happen because I've scrolled right up to the top and I can't see it. So, right, we've got 3 minutes, Les. Have we got time for another question?
Well,
thank you, Matt.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. No, I think it's roundup time, and apologize for any questions that have been asked and we didn't get them read out.
Yeah. If we missed anybody, please write me on played@412@gmail.com.
Yeah, and we didn't have time to discuss the Mothman.
Did you want to ask me Paul, before we go, about any quick question on the Mothman, or
do you know? I don't think we're going to have time, are we, Les?
No,
But
we've got to round it
Matt,
up.
okay, we
But
can
I
get
do
back.
want. Can you come back?
I absolutely will come back, and I would love to have you as a guest as well again.
Well, let's book
Brilliant.
that after this or tomorrow, and we'll get it done.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. And where can people contact you, Matt?
You can contact me. You can reach out to me. I'm not afraid about this on Messenger, on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, my name's Matt Emch. You see it right there. If you have an experience or anything, you can reach out on me there. And then most people reach out to me on planet412@gmail.com. It is PLANETFOURTWELVE. I tried to get the number 412. Somebody had stolen it. So you got to write it out. You can email me there, and I will do my best as soon as possible to get back to you.
Brilliant.
Right, guys, we have
thank
literally
you.
reached the last second of the show. And thank you, Matt, for coming on. And thanks, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Alison. Thanks, everybody in chat.
Thanks, everybody, for coming on to tonight's stream. Bye.
Good night, all.